We are here to address a really important point of discussion today for anyone with poultry in their care: euthanasia, which by definition means a kind death, putting an animal down in a kind manner. The good news is vets can do this for you, so if you know that this is not something you feel comfortable doing, then do make sure you're prepared to take the bird to a vet immediately if and when the time comes. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, this just isn't realistic, whether that's financial, practical, or simply not having access to a vet. Perhaps you are deliberately culling birds from the flock or butchering for the kitchen table. And of course, emergencies do occur, so I always recommend that all owners are aware of just how to go about euthanizing a chook humanely at home. Remember, birds are prey animals. They are very, very good at hiding pain and distress, so as not to look like the weakest member of the flock to be picked off by a predator. If you are already noticing that she's fluffed up, off her food, or other behavioural changes, I can guarantee she is already really struggling. Far too often birds are left to pass away on their own or adopt a wait and see sort of approach, which is not appropriate for birds. Okay, this usually ends really badly, entailing a pretty high level of suffering for a prolonged period before they pass on their own, and that's not acceptable. So let's break down how to do this. Here in New Zealand, we have welfare laws around euthanasia, and there are just 3 accepted methods. The first is, of course, using drugs through a vet. This usually involves a tiny little needle to give some sedation so they fall asleep first, and then a drug is given to stop the heart. But it is then, of course, not safe to eat the meat, so this is absolutely not appropriate if you're actually butchering for the table. The process is absolutely very welfare friendly. The last thing she knows is she's resting her eyes for a moment and then she's completely away with the fairies. So this is the gold standard method for welfare, and any mechanical means of euthanasia that we're going to talk about today will have limitations. The second is called cervical dislocation. This is when the skull is dislocated from the rest of the vertebrae in the neck. The reason you'll see conflicting advice on this method online is because if done correctly, it is an almost instant stun and loss of consciousness, so would be considered the best at-home option, but it's often not done correctly. There have been reports of 40 to 50% failure rates in some situations, with these birds suffering for a prolonged period afterwards. And it's not always easy to tell if it has been done correctly either. So this is not something I will be recommending to try for the first time at home or attempting to teach you how to do across a video. What I'm going to walk you through today is the third option, and the third way is to swiftly cut off the head. Now, cutting off the head is not instantaneous either. Research has showed brain activity persisting for about 30 to 45 seconds after severing the head. She's probably aware of her surroundings for about 15 to 20 seconds. And during that time, she will be receiving nerve signals from those severed tissues. So as you can see, sedation through a vet is still the only truly gold standard euthanasia approach available at the moment. However, severing the neck is most definitely preferable to a slow and suffering death. The biggest hurdle is really keeping her still. It's the stress of handling that really makes it unpleasant. Now, if she's already really debilitated and on her way out, this may not be an issue for you. Hopefully we haven't let her get to this stage though before helping her. So how can we make it go as smoothly as possible? If you've got a helper with you, that is ideal. If you have 2 people, one person holds the body, the other person helps to extend the neck, so holding gently onto the head and extending the neck. If it's just you and you're doing this on your own, what I would recommend is finding a piece of wood and bang in 2 nails a couple of inches apart. Secure them with some elastic bands once the head is in. You will need to stretch her neck out to make a cut in just the right place. So what you can do if she's really weak and out of it is you might just be able to hold her by the legs, but what I'd recommend is gently wrapping a towel over her wings. This gentle pressure on her wings tends to help calm them down, and it gives you a nice, easy handling platform there. Once you've wrapped her gently in a towel, you're going to place her head between those nails. Just be careful you're not catching any of the skin on her neck. We need to be very gentle here. Place her little head between those nails, and that's going to help hold her. You can secure the head there with an elastic band just to help hold it, and you can place a nice little towel over the head as well. Keeping her eyes nice and dark again adds an element of sedation there, and it can certainly help the person doing the deed to not be looking at her little face. Now, in terms of where to cut, this is important. What we need to do here once we've got her secured is move quickly, make a swift, committed cut with a sharp knife midway down the neck. If you go too close to the head, you may accidentally leave a piece of the brain stem attached to the body, which is a long piece at the back of the brain that extends down the spinal cord just a little way. If you leave that behind, you might have a bird where the breathing and heartbeat continues. She won't have any consciousness, but she may have those really primal reflexes intact, which is not a fun time for you to observe. So midway down the neck, nice and swift, and you do have to commit. If you just cut her enough that she dies from blood loss without actually severing the neck, this is called exsanguination. She is still conscious while she is bleeding. This is not humane. It is not acceptable by New Zealand welfare laws. Now, do expect some reflex kicks and flaps after the neck has been severed. This is not conscious movement. There is no way that it can be if the brain has been removed. These are simply normal muscle twitch reflexes. We've just severed the spinal nerves, so that's all that's happening there, is we've got some extra twitches happening as those nerve impulses kind of work themselves out. So swift, midway down the neck with a very sharp blade. Please do watch your fingers. There are other methods floating around online, especially from overseas, where the welfare laws are not as well developed as here in New Zealand. Blunt force, drowning, spinning to dislocate the neck, these are all completely unacceptable and not legal here. Bleeding her out while conscious, completely unacceptable by law, okay? Make sure you feel comfortable with the technique, or know where your nearest vet is that can do it for you before the time comes. If you need help on when is an appropriate time to euthanize a hen, when is she beyond help, jump over to our video on performing a physical exam. All right, guys, thanks for hanging in for a heavy topic there. All the best and good luck.